Okay, chapter 19 is Zach Powers. Our question is, what do Hugh Winkleman and Zach Powers discover that they have in common? Okay. I saw a show last night with a bunch of scientists arguing over what the science will be when the world is coming to an end. So this is Zach, popular Zach, okay? They talked about asteroids, volcanoes, and melting ice caps. Small minds. When Cap Anderson becomes the most popular happening kid at C Average Middle School, that's the end of the world. Especially when you consider the guy he replaced was me. It was all because of that stupid dance. How could a hippie who knew less than nothing about parties organize the middle school bash of everyone's dreams? It's your own fault, Lena accused. You recruited half the school to bug him, and he turned them into an army of volunteers. She had a point. With the exception of me and the hairball in chief, everyone was working on the Halloween dance, even the cool people. Daryl was hauling huge rolls of construction paper to the decoration people in the art room. Naomi was designing reflective mobiles to hang from the basketball hoops. Lena was on the committee to cover the bleachers with orange and black bunting. Even cheap paper chains were impressive when you had 1,100 kids stringing them. This is going to be the greatest party we've ever had, Naomi enthused. I bet we get 1,000 kids. And that's just the planning committee, I added sourly. What's wrong with that? Ignore him, Lena put in. He's in mourning because he thinks Cap stole his year. Our year, I corrected, and he's making it into 1967. You shouldn't be so hard on Cap, Daryl told me. Sure, he's weird, but he is the best 8th grade president we've ever had. 8th grade president isn't a real job, I seethed. It's a joke, remember? Well, maybe it started that way, Naomi said earnestly, but Cap Anderson is the most amazing person I've ever known. I snorted. Anybody can be amazing handing out $1,000 checks. Now that had caught me off guard. What was up with all this charity? He gave $800 to the food drive in the cafeteria, $500 to cancer research, the same to the Alzheimer's disease. They may have called it the March of Dimes, but that didn't stop Cap from forking over $650. He's saying like dimes, but he gave $650. He even stuck checks in the slots of those cans designed for people to drop their spare change. Mr. Kosigi had to be behind it somehow. Cap wouldn't be allowed to throw around big chunks of school money without permission from the office. Maybe the whole thing was a lesson about philanthropy. Philanthropy means like charity, like giving to a good cause. It bugged me. The 8th grade president wasn't supposed to set a good example. His job was to make an idiot out of himself and have a nervous breakdown. Stop. But no, the assistant principal had to set Cap up for sainthood. Whatever Kosigi was thinking, if he was thinking, I was the one paying the price. I was spending more and more of my time arguing with my friends, and all because of that hairball. My year. Yeah, right. More like my minute. How do you think I felt at lunch on Tuesday when I walked out of the food line with my tray and found Cap Anderson at my table in my seat? Okay, it was a big cafeteria, but I had been working my way up to that position since the very first day of 6th grade. It hadn't taken me more than 30 seconds to look around the room and know that this was the place where the masters of the universe ate their tuna fish sandwiches. It was near the wall of windows, but not so close as to get hot on sunny days. Yet, at the end of the period, a shaft of light always seemed to shine down like a spotlight on the person sitting in the end chair. My chair. At least until today. Those filtered rays were shining down on the haystack of Sasquatch hair. I stared at Daryl. The gutless wonder wouldn't even look me in the eye. Normally one of his partners in crime, Daryl. He was concentrating on the exit sign over the door, which may or may not have been a message for me to get out. Naomi was focused on Cap, which meant nobody else in the building existed. Lena was the only one with the nerve to face me. Her look plainly announced that not only had I lost my spot, but I wasn't welcome to pull up a chair and squeeze in either. Fuming, I turned away. Crash! It was a tray-to-tray collision. My split pea soup sloshed onto his egg salad sandwich. His tater tots flipped into my banana cream pie. His Snapple tipped over, raining down on my shoes. I stared at the idiot as iced tea soaked into my socks. The last person I wanted to see just then. Hugh Winkleman. He stood frozen with fear, probably straining all those math brain cells to calculate how big of a wedgie he had just earned himself. Let me tell you, he should have been thinking huge. I had half a mind to stick a booster rocket under his waistband and launch it into orbit. You... And then I looked in the expression on his face, and it was like looking in a mirror. He was staring at his hippie friend, who now had no time for him, and I was staring at my friend's same story. In a way, it was more depressing than anything that had happened so far. I, Zach Powers, had something in common with this loser. That had to be rock bottom. Still, there was only one other person in the whole school that was as disgusted as I was by all this hippie mania, and that person had just dropped his lunch on me. Sorry, he said nervously. I felt an odd rush of emotion. It wasn't affection, trust me, but Hugh represented an earlier time at the school, before the space capsule landed and barfed up Cap Anderson, a time when things made sense. Hugh was the one who should have been 8th grade president all along. Heck, if I had met Cap 24 hours later, it probably would have happened exactly that way. Then this still would be my year, and Cap would be nothing more than a walking bad hair day. Nobody really knew. He got some pretty funny things about his hair. Don't worry about it, I told Hugh. Listen, we gotta talk. He looked so suspicious that I felt a pang of remorse for the mean things I had said and done to him since kindergarten. In all the years I had known him, we had never had a conversation that hadn't been a sham to lure him through a door with a bucket of iced water balanced on top. Sure, he was suspicious. Wouldn't you be? About Cap Anderson, I elaborated, and everything that's been going on. Hugh expanded his tunnel vision on Cap to include an inventory of the guy's table mates. He sneered at me. Oh, ho, ho. Looks like somebody's been replaced. I swallowed my pride. You'll notice Cap isn't hanging out with you anymore. I was his friend when no one else would talk to him, Hugh said resentfully, when you and your cronies were trying to ruin his life. Well, whatever we're plotting, it obviously didn't happen. He's practically the king of the school. Hugh nodded slowly. I don't like it either. It doesn't have to be this way, I pressed on. He rounded on me. You're such a jerk. Whoever told you that the whole world performs according to your instructions? That's what started this whole mess. You trying to make poor Cap dance to your tune. I don't remember you warning the guy off when we nominated him for 8th grade president, I snarled. So now they're getting into an argument. Because I was grateful that the nominee didn't turn out to be me, Hugh. I pounced on this. So you let Cap swallow the hook. Now who's the manipulator? You're just as guilty as I am. Maybe so, but I'm not stupid, he said hotly. Making Cap your victim blew up in your face. Now you want him out so you can stick me in his place. It's not like that, I pleaded. Look, Cap's president. We're stuck with that. But there's still time to puncture the tires of this bandwagon before the Halloween dance ratchets him up to icon status. No way. Just because I'm mad at Cap doesn't mean I'm going to help you stab him in the back. At my table, Naomi leaned over and dabbed delicately at a ketchup smear on the side of Cap's mouth. I almost upchucked. Will you look at that? So she's like, wiping his mouth. Hugh had been watching too, his face twisted with distaste. He said, to be continued. What is that supposed to mean? Nothing, he muttered, not quite meeting my eyes. What do you need me to do? I shrugged. Simple. The whole school thinks he's immortal. We just have to show them that they're wrong. Alright, 20, Capricorn Anderson. I don't remember exactly when I stopped keeping count of how many people's names I knew. It was somewhere in the 300s, and the total had to be even higher now. The yearbooks made the biggest difference. I had looked at those little black and white pictures, and suddenly an image of someone I'd seen around the school would pop into my head, and poof, I'd know another student. Can you pull it up and click pause? Don't hit stop. Okay. I was kind of lagging behind on the 6th graders because they weren't in the C average yearbook, but Mrs. Donnelly had the elementary books as well, and there they were, the graduating 5th grade class. So remember, he's still trying to learn all the names. Mrs. Donnelly has all the yearbooks. Okay. Rain would be proud. I used the memory technique that she had learned from a college professor who had passed through Garland in the early 70s. So here's how you do it. You find a connection between the name and something about the person. For example, Monique rhymes with streak, and she had a blonde streak in her dark hair. Daryl was built like a huge barrel, but sometimes I had to be a little more creative. 7th grade Ron had a birthmark shaped like a crab, which made me think of the Crab Nebula. Astronomy. It sounds difficult, but once your brain is used to working that way, it happens almost automatically. I will tell you, I did those things all through school, trying to help me memorize spelling words and vocabulary words. I did those same type of, my brain just did those same type of silly things, and it really does work. It's called like mnemonic devices, and like, it really does work. For someone who grew up knowing only one person, suddenly knowing hundreds of them was a little intimidating. But I had to admit it was kind of wonderful too. In Sophie's opinion, studying old yearbooks was just another reason why I had to get a life. Of all the things she said to me, this was maybe the most baffling. How could I get a life when I was obviously already alive? I messed that one up. We were seeing less and less of each other, despite the fact that we were in the same house. Sophie's driving test was in a week, so she never passed up a chance to practice with her mother. And she wasn't watching TV with me anymore because Trigonometry and Tears had gone into reruns, which meant that they were showing old stories that we had already seen. I thought it was fantastic because it gave you another chance to notice things that you might have missed the first time around. She rolled her eyes at me. We just saw this episode 2 weeks ago. LaShonda flunks home ec and gets caught lending Troy's letter jacket to that college guy she's been dating on the side. I wish she hadn't said that because I wanted to be surprised again, even though I knew it was going to happen. But she'd been fairly upbeat lately. She was excited about her road test, and I'm so happy with her bracelet. I was thrilled that I had been able to do that for her. The best thing about being 8th grade president was definitely the checks Mr. Kosicki had given me. It was funny. A money-obsessed world was the main reason Rain had dropped out and formed Garland. Yet, in my experience, money was really excellent, and every time I spent it, someone ended up smiling. I was planning to mention it next time Rain and I spoke on the phone. Money could help hospitals and disaster victims and starving orphans. What was so terrible about it? Thanks to Mr. Kosicki's checks, I was in position to lend a hand. It was everything she had taught me to believe in. Mr. Kosicki would be back from his conference next week. I couldn't wait to show him how good I had become at using money. Also, I needed some more checks. The first batch was almost finished. He was going to be impressed. Okay, time passed. C Average Middle School had 3 lunch periods of 45 minutes each. On Wednesday, classes were canceled during that 2-hour block so everyone could go to the football field. Hugh explained it to me. It's a pep rally. Pep? I repeated. You know, cheering, excitement, rah, rah, rah. The whole school gets together to watch the players bonk helmets and beat their chests. And that takes 2 hours, I queried. I was getting better at understanding school customs, but this one didn't make much sense to me. Not really, Hugh admitted. Most of the time it's getting everybody in and out again. But it's pretty intense. We play Rhinecliff on Saturday, and they're our biggest rivals. Over what? Football, of course. And as the 8th grade president, you have an important role. Rain and I weren't sports fans, what with the obsession over winning and losing, but I couldn't disappoint everybody after they had made me feel so welcome. I followed Hugh into the mass migration of students heading out of the building at 11:15. We were a noisy procession with horns and cowbells and excited voices chanting rhyming cheers. It was hard not to be swept up in it, even though I wasn't sure what it was about. So much of school was like that, more a feeling than anything of substance. What's my part in all this? I asked Hugh. He led me away from the crowd, thundering onto the metal bleachers and into a low hut marked locker rooms. We slipped through a door that said visitors. He plucked a set of large pads off a wall hook and placed them on my shoulders. You're going to be out there with the team. So football pads. I was alarmed. I don't know how to do football. Don't worry, he soothed me. It isn't a game. You just have to show your support for the team. As if on cue, the PA system crackled to life. Faculty and students, give it up for your very own Claridge Condors. Running feet clattered in the hall outside. The field exploded with cheers. Even more deafening was the metallic boom of thousands of feet on the bleachers. A band was playing, but it was barely audible over the crowd noise. Am I late? I asked anxiously. No, Hugh replied. You're going to be right on time. He eased a yellow football jersey over my head and began tucking my hair underneath the matching helmet. Maybe I need a bigger hat, I suggested. Maybe you need a haircut, he countered, cramming the bulky headgear into place. A face guard lowered itself into my field of vision. I felt like I was peering out from behind a fence. Is that really necessary? I asked. Definitely. For an instant, I thought he looked kind of sad. I was concerned. Is everything okay? When is everything ever okay with me? He complained. Now get out there and make the school proud. He pointed me through the doorway, which led down a concrete tunnel and onto the field. The crowd noise swelled to a deafening crescendo. But you know how cheers sound friendly? This was different. Angrier. Mean, even. I scanned the bleachers and saw a sea of hostile faces staring at me. But I was here to support our team. I started walking toward the players just as they started toward me, and they began to pick up speed. I could feel the ground shake as they reached a full-on stampede. It was then that I made a startling discovery. They were all dressed in football uniforms like I was, but their jerseys were blue and red, not yellow like mine. I peered down at my chest and read, upside down, a single word. Rhinecliff. Why was I dressed as the other team?